when we had the GME experts on the show before, Rentals in particular thought that, what if the play right now for these hedge funds is to try to start protecting their money, right? Move it to offshore accounts, like move it to a place where they cannot be, where they can maybe start a new after this whole GME thing happens. But if they go bankrupt, then that doesn't really matter. So what is the point of holding out right now? The hedge funds clearly can cover these shorts right now without going bankrupt. So why don't they do it before the inevitable happens? What do you think?
Fear, greed. All people are the exact same, man. Just because they wear a suit and a tie and they run a business does not mean they're subject to the same human emotions that a retail investor is. I've read some interesting DDs on Reddit where people are talking about certain instances where they worked for a hedge fund or they were an analyst or they just have insider information. And these people would rather have their pride intact. They don't want to get smoked on their pride and admit they lost. And they'd rather play the fear-greed game and double down on their convictions and say, piss on you guys, we're going to win this end game. And we talked about this on your stream. You said it. And I thought that was the most intelligent thing, dude. You said if these shorts didn't cover AMC at $5, why would they consider doing it right now at 11? You know what I mean? If they didn't think that $5 was low enough, why would they cover at 11? And it's for the exact reason that you said. It's fear and greed, man. It's fear and greed. They would have covered it at 5 if they thought, you know what? We did good. We're profitable now. But they didn't, and they're definitely not going to do it now when they're probably some of them in the negative. I mean, at this point, if they were doubling down and they were shorting the stock at $5, which we saw the short volume way back then, according to Fintel, who knows if it was accurate or not? We'll take it for what it is. But the short volume was still high. We saw between 15 and 30% almost every single day. So we know that it was still getting shorted, even though it was just consolidating for 8 straight days. They didn't cover at $5. Why would they cover at 11? Fear and greed. They want to make some freaking cash and they want to burn people.
So I love that. I love that approach. I think that there's a lot of truth to exactly that theory. Why, if they didn't cover back then, why would they cover now? Well, the back then was that we were in a very weak position, and they were like, we can just hold on a little longer. It's very expensive for us to cover, and it's a lot easier for us to just keep this this war of attrition going. However, now it's starting to seem a little inevitable, right? If I was a smart hedge fund, I would just cover. Because at the very least, then my hedge fund doesn't go explode. My grandfather's hedge fund doesn't blow up in my face. So that is a question about the actual 4D chess that hedge funds are playing. They are paid to outthink us, right? So at the end of the day, Game of Thrones references aside, I know Game of Thrones as reference, one of them would be relevant here, which is all of these armies think that they have a key advantage, right? And then you can have the Battle of the Blackwater actually show off their tricks that we didn't expect them to have. And we keep asking about, what are these hedge fund tricks? What can they actually do? Because they must have something that they're preparing to do. What do you think that they are preparing to do? What would you do if you were in their shoes?
If I was a hedge fund right now and I had a short position, what would I do? God, that's a good question. You got some good questions, man. What a freaking channel host. Appreciate you having me on, by the way.
Oh, of course.
If I was a shorter and I was a hedge fund, I think that I would just flip the table. I would go long. I would, and I think that there are some that have done it and there are some that haven't. But if I was a shorter and I was down a crap ton of money, I would just buy a piss ton of call options. I would buy enough call options to double my position where I'm short. And they could do it if they wanted. They 100% could. And what would happen, they've got billions of dollars at their disposal. They can play with money. If they wanted to, they can't do it, obviously, for legal reasons, but they could literally just dump billions of dollars in this and do it. The stock game would be over, but that's probably not illegal, Anyways, they could buy enough call options. Let's say they got 1 million short shares and they bought 2 million shares worth of call options. Well, now they're long on their position. And because of that, right, you can push a gamma squeeze, you can push the stock price up, and they can cover on half of those, be profitable, go long on those other shares, maybe exercise them or sell them back to somebody else. Then they're profitable, and they're able to ride the wave up instead of fighting against the grain. And I think there are hedge funds that have done that. I think there are institutional buyers out there that are looking to cutthroat this game and kill people. Not necessarily retail investors, but that are going long and have flipped the table because they see it going this way. I think that's why I've seen different analysts that are saying this is either a hold or a buy. I mean, you've got those news sources that are like, yeah, this is stupid. It's going to 1 penny. Have you seen that 1 cent dude yet? Have you seen that guy that's predicting that AMC goes to 1 penny?
I have heard about him.
What a joke. Yeah. Man, I laugh so freaking hard. I can't believe that is that's even a thing. But if I was a short position, I'd go long big time. And Who knows if Melvin Capital or Citadel are still short on this position? I would guess they are. I mean, just based on the way that they talk on these interviews and their hearings. But there's obviously institutional investors that are still short on this, and I think they're just not doing the right thing. There's so much attention here, and there's so many institutions that we know have bought into this long. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. You can see them grasping at straw, trying to do everything they can to piss pound this thing down to the dirt. You know, all these hit pieces coming out, the news articles, the TV shows that are saying, oh, it's going to 1 penny, it's game over. All these retail investors are just a bunch of smooth brains, don't know what they're doing. Stupid Robinhood, blah blah blah. Like, you guys, you know what it is, but it's just garbage.
So math-wise, we love math here. Math-wise, let's say that they try to do that. They try to buy, I don't know what would make sense, like $300 call options. They would have to buy like a lot of $300 call options because they are currently, the delta between their shorts and the price is like 260, basically, like almost the entire thing. And for AMC as well. Do you know where the majority of the shorts are for AMC, the original price?
Where they were bought at?
Yeah.
That's a good question. So we can look at AMC short interest on Market Beat, and it gives you kind of a rough estimate. However, the issue being that it doesn't quite line up, like the price that they give doesn't always line up with the dollar volume sold short and then the total volume. Right. So if we look at the 26th of February, it says that there was 55.49 million total shares sold short. And if we just take that dollar volume sold short, it says 546 million. It says the price on report date was 985. So I'm going to do the math here and see what that comes out to. 55, 490.
We love math. This is the math.
I know, it's so tough.
Math. Speaking of which, thank you guys for the ones that are sending supers. I want to be respectful to Trey. I will read through some of them in just a second. Oh, Kelly Francis, love you both and thanks for the information. I can read that one.
You can read these real quick. I keep mistyping because I can't read my screen.
Oh, good. So someone's Gerbert is asking about costs. We'll add that to the backlog. And Bill Shaw is saying, seeing rumors on Reddit that Melvin is moving 401ks to different brokers effective March 18th, preparing for bankruptcy. This is a question that I do want to cover with Trey in a second.
Sure. Okay, so what we have now is the report date. February 26th, there was 55.49 million total shares sold short, 546 million total in volume, and the average price on that was 985. So that's the most recent information that we have available in terms of short interest history. So 985 is what they shorted at. So they're definitely not profitable on those at least 55.49 million total shares sold short. I don't know if this is including the synthetic shares, if this is including the IOUs, the FTDs. Nobody can tell you that, right? There's no way to really know. But if that's the case, they're not profitable. So it's interesting. Even with that flash crash that happened, I mean, maybe they all covered at 950, but I don't think so. I mean, you would see the utilization and that shares go basically to zero, which it hasn't. I mean, Ortex is still sitting at 94% right now. So I think that most of them are probably still negative.
So in that sense, right, it's kind of like the amount of calls you have to so GME is famous because there's just so many shares shorted as a percent of the float, right? And if I understand call options correctly, there's probably a limit to how many you can do, right? Depending on how many shares could possibly even be bought. So if let's say that you needed twice as many call options at a specific price to offset the amount of damage the shorts would cost, like math-wise, does that even still make sense for hedges to try to do?
So, from my understanding, where a lot of these FTDs are coming from, and what's really, really interesting about the situation is that clearinghouses can essentially write up as many call options as they want, which is where that FTD, the failure to deliver, comes into play. So originally, when you have an IOU that's written out to somebody, it's not malicious in any sort of way. Their basic premise, I think you've already covered this, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know the whole game. I don't even have to walk through it for you, obviously. But for anybody who doesn't know, the original intent was not necessarily malicious. It was basically like, okay, I know that I've got a certain amount of shares coming in tomorrow or the next day, so I'm gonna write on an IOU knowing that I've got that collateral coming in the next day. Well, it began to get a little bit malicious, right? People would just write out IOUs to people, even knowing that they don't have the collateral and they're not gonna get the collateral anytime soon. So I think that's the danger of call options, and where some of these clearinghouses are getting into trouble because they can infinitely write up these call options, even if it goes beyond the total shares that they have available and the total float percentage. And if you think about put options, right? I didn't track GameStop at the time when when it was having that crazy short interest. But I would imagine the put options on GameStop were nuts. I bet you that's where a lot of that short interest came from, was put options. And AMC's, put options, if we were just to look at the options chain from 12 March, what are we looking at? Pretty decent amount of put options, which a lot of them ended up expiring worthless, by the way. 67,000 at $8 alone, 16,000 at 10, 18,000 at 9. I would imagine that a lot of these are where you're getting some of these hedge funds and institutions that are like trying to hide their short interest. They're doing these put options. So 67,000 put options for AMC, $8. That's a lot of shares, man. That's freaking 6.7 million alone just from that. And that doesn't even get reported on the short interest data because it's not actual shorted shares. They're options. And these clearinghouses can write these up infinitely, which is the real danger, man. And that's where a lot of these FTDs, failures to delivers, the synthetic shares could circulate. That's monumental. Does that answer your question? I always ramble. You know how it goes, Andrew.
No,
anytime you bring me on, you just have to expect that happens, I guess.
No, I like that answer. I like how, there's just a ton of math behind the options that the hedge funds can try to go through. So hopefully that gives you a sense of, like, if you were a hedge fund, what kind of shenanigans would you be up to?